My childhood dog showed back up to my house after 30 years, Part 3. A story by user Luther writes horror. Last night I fled my house where my wife and mother had been possessed by some evil thing taking the shape of my childhood dog, Shadow. After driving, stricken by terror, aimless and without hope, I reached out to my sister, Ellie. We'd never really been close, but I knew she'd gone no contact with the rest of the family years ago, so if I had any safe haven it was going to have to be her. I was wondering if I'd hear from you. Mom's been blowing up my phone, left me at least a dozen messages in the last couple hours, and she knows I'm not about to listen to them. Honestly, I wasn't sure where to start. You know that dog we had, Shadow, who disappeared 30 years ago? He showed back up at my house. What? A dog? We never had a dog, she said. I described Shadow to her, told her about how he used to go everywhere with us, showed her pictures on my phone. Nothing jogged her memory. She literally had no memory whatsoever of us ever having a dog, nor of my mom pining after our lost pet for years afterward. I worried, was this Shadow's fault too? I'd already witnessed firsthand his ability to reach into my mind. Would it be too much to assume he could erase someone's memory of him entirely? You have to be kidding. Why don't I remember him? She asked. I recounted what had happened in the 2 days since Shadow showed up. How strange my wife and our mother had been acting, Shadow's obsession with my son, my general feeling of the house being unsafe, how our mother chased me out of the house with scissors while I was holding my infant son. I left out the supernatural for now. How could I expect her to believe that? Mom's finally lost it, huh? You know, the thing that really drove us apart was how vicarious she could get while mocking my beliefs in the spiritual. Now she goes and turns into a true believer because of this dog? It's hard to wrap my head around. While she listened to Mom's ranting voicemails, I got settled in and set up a makeshift travel crib for my son. He slept in the car, but when he woke up he was obviously cranky about it. She's really something else about this dog, isn't she? She keeps saying you'd better return his son and that you can get your own. I get why you had to escape. She made me a coffee and I braved the walls of text my wife sent. Come back here, honey. There's nothing to be afraid of. I keep telling you Shadow is a good dog. If you feel like he was hostile to you, he was only trying to protect our son. If you don't come home soon, I'm calling the police. You can't just take our son away from us. Shadow wouldn't like that. He's a good dog. Come back and he'll forgive you. What the heck is happening? Don't come home, take our son far away from here. I'm so scared, please help me, help me. I can't do this, he's going to kill us, he's going to kill us all. There's a black pit with teeth at its rim and it's swallowing me. It's a black pit with blood dripping down its sides. I'm so scared, I'd rather die than let him get our son. I'm so scared. There's a deep black pit with teeth at its rim and it goes down and it never ends. That's where I'm going. He's not a dog. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. Please help. I can't do this anymore. Come back here, honey. Shadow will forgive you. He's forgiven all of us. Can't you see that's why he's here? He wants to make our lives better. He's going to make sure our son is safe. Nobody will ever hurt him. I had to help her. My wife. Trapped in some deep supernatural pit. I couldn't imagine her terror. My face went slack sitting there at my sister's house, reading the messages, my child fussing in the corner. Does Mom want to marry that dog or something? Seriously, this is bonkers, my sister said from the kitchen. Hey, you still there? I was too caught in the dread of that wall of texts to respond. I felt like my soul had just been sucked out. I couldn't let her stay there. I couldn't let Shadow win this time. Yeah, I'm here. There's more than I told you. And so I told the story of exactly what had happened, how Shadow wasn't a dog, but something else entirely, how he tried to take control of my mind. I showed her the texts from my wife. Initially, I was sure she'd think I'd lost it too. She had to remember that I was the imaginative child. Of course she'd think that I was making up another story to deal with the trauma of leaving my family. But to her credit, she just nodded, listening. I've heard of things like this happening, but never so serious, she said, the lines in her face deepening. I guess since we've been so distant. I'd never realized how much she'd grown as a person, how she had her own complete life that had changed her. That carefree, curious, and impulsive red-headed older sister of mine had grown up years ago, and I wondered what she saw in me. Her petulant younger brother, did she read the life behind my wrinkles as well? I have some friends who might be able to help, she said, hesitating. Only, they're odd. So just, be real with them, okay? They might seem a bit eccentric, but they'll take this seriously. I promise. Dabbling with the occult takes a certain kind of person is all. That's how I met Hawthorne and Taryn the next day. They came to my sister's house the next morning. Hawthorne was a short, Goth-looking guy who wore all sorts of chains with symbols on them. Pensive and quiet, he described himself as a warlock of sorts. Taryn was dressed like a construction worker with Carhartt overalls and a white shirt. Her every gesture emanated a strange intensity that made me think of a drill sergeant. Damn. Complicated case, huh? Hawthorne said, mostly to Taryn. Complicated? Nah, we take out the dog and whatever the hell this is will go about its merry way, won't it? She opened and closed her hands, tensing every muscle. I'm not so sure. Hawthorne turned the idea around in his head. If it's a standard demon, maybe an exorcism. But this is some pretty nasty mind control for a demon, and why wouldn't it take a human as a host? Okay, we chop the head of the animal, it goes away. I'm doubtful on that. So far we've seen evidence for 3 different manifestations of whatever this shadow is, so it's difficult to ascertain which is the truth, or what lies behind all of it. 3? I asked. Yes, Hawthorne said. First is Shadow as the dog you'd always known him as. Second is the version of Shadow that you saw standing at your son's crib. Third is this hole with the teeth lining its edges your wife detailed. That last part is the real riddle. Because that's what she's seeing when she's inside its grasp trying to break free. So what do we do? I asked. What we can't do is wait. This thing is a malicious entity and it's hungry for something. Showing up after 30 years, now exerting a great deal more influence, that's a major move. If Shadow can't get to your child, he's going to escalate the situation. Tombstone? Taryn asked. I'm afraid so, Hawthorne shrugged. What does that mean? I asked. Like Wyatt Earp and his brothers against the Cowboys, we go in armed to the hip and tell him to throw down his weapons and disband. Get out of town, that sort of thing. Taryn almost seemed excited about it. I thought of my wife stuck in some deep pit, screaming for help. I hoped this worked. We arrived at my house an hour before sunset. Taryn and Hawthorne had packed a full carload of supplies for the exorcism: holy water, crosses, Bibles, holy books from other religions, a tub of salt, and a bunch of paraphernalia I couldn't identify. I'd left my son in the care of my sister. If anything happened to me, she said she would keep him safe. The house looked so peaceful. Its blue trim gave way to white siding, the grass on the lawn only slightly untidy. Until today I'd never walked in with an ounce of fear. But today it took an unbelievable effort just to open the car door. And yet, from the outside nobody could guess that something sinister waited within. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table when we came in. Good, you've brought friends. Shadow is very social. He'll be pleased for the company, she said. We ignored her and went upstairs to find my wife and Shadow. They were both sitting in my son's room as if they were waiting for us. Shadow wants his son back, honey. Why don't you just bring him to us? My wife said in an eerie monotone. It sent a chill down my spine. That was her mouth, that was her voice box, but it wasn't quite her voice. Shadow didn't move from where he sat, but gazed at Hawthorne and Taryn as if investigating every aspect of their appearance. None of that will help you, but you're free to try. He won't stop you, my wife said, laughing. Hawthorne and Taryn stood there, motionless. Start the exorcism, while we have the chance, I said. My wife continued laughing. Oh, I think Shadow might have changed his mind. She turned to me. Now you're going to push me down the stairs, as a little punishment. I looked at her in horror. No, not again, I said. Then maybe Shadow will kill your new friends here. How do you think he'll do it? Do you think it'll be quick? He could go for their throats. Or maybe he'll take his time. There's plenty of little arteries in the arms and legs he could bite into. I won't do it. We're going to stop you, I said. She walked to the top of the stairs. Come on, it'll be fun. You can't tell me everything has always been rosy for us. This is your chance to get back at me. She paused. You're no fun. I guess I'll just throw myself. Who knows, maybe my neck will snap. Shadow would have fun with that. Dogs like a good bone. I reached out and grabbed her, pulling her back right as she was about to do it. Help, help, he has my mind and I can't get out, help me, I can't stand it anymore, she screamed. We have to go now, I said. I started pulling her toward the door and her head flew back and she began laughing in a voice that wasn't her own at all. It's not going to be that easy. Here's a deal, bring the child and you can have your wife back. In the meanwhile, I'll savor your friends. I turned to look at Hawthorne and Taryn. Shadow still had full control over them. What could I do? I couldn't leave them. Just then the glass jar of holy water in Taryn's hand shattered and she snapped out of paralysis. Run. she yelled, dragging Hawthorne. I tried to grab my wife, but she continued laughing, unmoving as if her body weighed as much as the whole house. Please, please, you have to break free from him. For one moment. I can't do this without you, I said. Taryn grabbed my hand and she must have dragged me out, because I wasn't going to abandon my wife to that monster again. Our son would be safe. It was her turn to be saved. I don't remember everything that happened in the next few minutes. I felt like a slab of rock. Somehow Hawthorne and Taryn got me out of the house and in the car, and we drove back in the direction of my sister's house. What do I do now?
That is the third part of this story. Does Shadow have the ability to possess other people? Does this mean that Shadow is a demon, clothed in a dog's skin? What will now happen to the wife and mother of our protagonist? To know more on what will happen to this story, share and subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell so you can access all the updates sent from us. And also, kindly like and share this video, and comment down below on what you think about the next part of this story. This is the Double Dutchman, and we are grateful for your support to our channel. Till our next episode, we'll see you there.